All right, we are recording. Pete, it's great to have you, man.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to finally get here and do this interview with you.
Yeah, it's we've been kind of going round and round for a little bit, but uh I'm glad that we're able to sync up our times, and it's what, Friday over there in Australia.
Yep, it's almost lunchtime here, so it's a bright sunny day, thankfully. So after this, going to grab a bite to eat and see what the rest of the weekend is going to have in store for me. So pretty excited.
Nice,
It's been a
man.
busy time at the moment.
Yeah, you don't say. You've been traveling all over the place. You went to let's go all the way back to September. You can just say that you went down to Vegas for CNFT Con. We met up there at Rare Bloom. Uh, and then you had a little bit of quote unquote downtime, I guess, whenever you were only, let's see, whenever you're only working on your stake pool, uh, your Learn Cardano channel, Blueshiftfi, working out in the mornings, doing your boxing training, and then also like being a family man. So like quote unquote downtime. And then you go to Cardano Summit where you're
Yeah.
ambassador of the year. Is that right?
Oh yeah, forget about that. Yeah,
So
it's definitely a lot on my plate, and I do have to say this CNFT Con Rare Bloom was a little bit of downtime, even though I was constantly doing interviews there. At least my mind was focused somewhere else. It did feel like a holiday, so I did get to do something else other than work on projects and whatnot. So there's so much that I've taken on at the moment. I probably should drop one or two things, but it's just a pleasure. Like the plugins that we're building, like a Cardano Press, that's getting such an uptake at the moment. The YouTube channel is starting to grow again after giving it more attention, and everything else in the ecosystem is just blooming at the moment, with DeFi growing and all the buzz from all the conferences and the summit and everything. So it's that sense of excitement. It's really building up again, even though we're in the deepest bear market I've ever seen. 90% drop from all-time highs. It's it's a big drop, but I think a lot of people are still really excited, still building.
so tell me a little bit about your journey into crypto, because my question was really going to be, were you around in the last bear market? I think you were, if I remember correctly. Um, but yeah, just tell me about your crypto journey and like what your background is, and then how you found Cardano.
Yeah. So I actually opened up my Coinbase account in 2013. So I
Holy
thought,
moly.
yeah, I know, but Australian citizens couldn't use it yet, so I couldn't connect my credit card and do anything with it. So I opened it back then, but didn't look at it again until 2017, where my friends dragged me back into it and said, "Hey, check out this Bitcoin and Ethereum thing. They've got this thing called smart contracts. You should check it out." So I did. Bought a little bit, signed up for Coinbase, and realized I already signed up for Coinbase. Then looked at my history of when I signed up. It's like 2013. It's like, are you serious? How much was Bitcoin back then? It's like, no, that's when you don't look. That's when you don't look. So if only be in a very different position.
Man, yeah, you can't do that woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff. You'll kill yourself doing that.
Oh yeah. But getting into it back then in 2017 was pretty exciting. Everything was going up. ICOs were a thing, and I was, I guess, buying into every ICO I could, and now losing everything I could back then, just as many people did. One of those projects, which sounded like the amazing unicorn project, would have, went 100x, 10x, whatever. None of them did. But just understanding what the potential was, and then getting into decentralization back then, I think was my doorway into blockchain in general.
Yeah. And then so we progressed through there, and then we can really try and find ourselves back at Cardano back in around what, 2017, 2018 timeframe. And so how did that progress for you?
Yeah, I think I purchased my first little bits on Bittrex. I think it was on Bittrex, and it was either Bittrex or an ICO. It was one of the two. I really can't remember now. But that was my first exposure to it. One of my friends sent me the white paper, and I had to read over it. I loved the approach. I thought, oh yeah, I'll buy some into that and just hold on to it. But as the crypto winter hit in early 2018, I basically left the entire market, concentrated on other things. I run my own web development business, so I thought, let's go into that.
Oh, sorry, I pushed the wrong button.
All good. So I went and focused things elsewhere, and then I think it was 2020, late 2020, the bull market started to come back again. I checked my balances for everything, loaded up Daedalus again for the first time in like years, and noticed that my balances at a comparable rate where I could possibly cash out and regain some of my initial investment. So I did. And then I thought, okay, now I'm back at parity. I'm back at zero. I haven't lost anything. Anything that's left over is a gain. So let's see what I can actually do with it now. So that's when I started looking into, okay, what's Cardano doing now? Oh, great. Okay, it's got a staking thing. Oh, wow, I can set up a stake pool. So I started investigating all the things around that. So that led me down the path of setting up a stake pool, I think in early 2021. Of course, I looked into other ecosystems like, what Solana was doing, what Algorand was doing, whether I could set up an ETH mining rig as well, because some of my friends did. So was I going to set up a ETH mining rig here in my apartment? Not very conducive. It's here in sunny Queensland. It does get very hot. I've got a sea breeze coming through. I was looking at my video card back then. It was like getting some rust on it. So that's the last thing I wanted to do. No mining rigs here. So having something in the cloud or bare metal was ideal. And that's where the stake pool operations came about.
Yeah. So whenever I was looking at, well, so for those of you guys that don't know, Pete's still recovering from a bit of a COVID case, and so that's his side there. He's doing the best he can. So bear with him.
A bit. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. I appreciate you giving up your time, and I'm glad I could catch you on the mend, and it wasn't too bad for you. But yeah, it's a bit of coughs going around here as well. You were mentioning how warm it was there in Queensland, and I remember you whenever we were at Rare Bloom talking about how cold it was, and I think that over there at Rare Bloom it was probably like 50 degrees Fahrenheit or so, and to put that into your terms, I just woke up this morning. It was -3 degrees Celsius.
What?
Yeah. So
no, thanks.
Yeah. So like 25 degrees. And I thought about you as I was walking into the gym in the morning. I was like, oh, man, it'd be nice to be in Australia.
No, I can't do that. No, sorry. No, thanks. Yeah, it was that temperature difference for me was quite interesting. I much preferred Vegas in the evenings when it was for me it was like 28 degrees Celsius in the evening, and that's just beautiful. Beautiful weather. It was dry. It was nice and warm, but that's just how I am. That's just what I'm used to now.
Oh yeah, man. Like I have friends that they come back from different areas around the world, and it could be 60 degrees Fahrenheit here, and they'll come back wearing a sweater, and you're just like, man. To think that last year you were walking around in a t-shirt and now you're in a sweater, but climate adjustments are real. They're tough to get used to. But yeah, so that's going back to your stake pool. So you started up your stake pool in 2021. You started Learn Cardano in 2020. Is that right? Did I hear you there, or is that 2021?
I started the channel and everything around it after I set up the stake pool, because like for anyone that's starting a stake pool right now, you just have to be aware that it is hard. It is not easy. You don't just set up a stake pool and suddenly people start delegating to you. You don't just jump on Twitter and say, hey, delegate to me, and hey, presto, it just happens. It does not work like that. You really need a big reach. You do need to market the pool. You do need to do tutorials and everything around it to try and build that reach. And our background in the web industry is web marketing as well. So we do a lot of SEO, we do a lot of social media campaigns and whatnot. So translating a lot of that experience over the last 10 years into operating a stake pool was really easy for us. So having that transition over, setting up a website, I think if you Google staking ADA Yoroi, for example, where are the number one or second result, and then think of any combination around that will come up at least on the first page. So having that background and making that easily accessible was number one goal. So that was the first thing I did. After that was a YouTube channel. I tried I'm an old school podcaster, so audio podcast, absolutely love it. Hence the good microphones, audio setup, the everything around it. So I've been doing podcasting since like 2013.
Oh wow!
With another podcast called Joomla Beat, which was all around web content management systems. So I transitioned that over to the Cardano side of things, but not many people listen to Cardano podcasts. The reach was like, maybe 30 people a week. So, that wasn't going to work. But the YouTube side of things, that works. That's where the people are. So that's where the audience is. So hence I started the YouTube channel. I hate being in front of the camera. It took a long time to get used to it. But, I just begged everyone for interviews. That's what I did in the Joomla Beat podcast. Just interviewed people, interviewed developers and whatnot. So I had some experience in it. Just did the same, rinse and repeat in the crypto space, in the Cardano space. And hey, presto, here we are now. 342 videos, 815,000 hours of views, and 15,400 subscribers. So it's taken a while, but it's a grind.
Good for you. Like, you almost have what, 1 million hours of viewing time.
Almost there, yeah. Almost.
Yeah, you'll get there before the next bull run. Hopefully, we'll see. And if not, then you'll definitely get there in the middle of it. But yeah, so for me, the whole goal is just to build up a bunch of content before we get there, because it seems like views go up during the bull market. So whenever people discover a channel, they like there to be a lot of content to go in and just dig into. If they like your channel and they like your style, so you got tons of material.
Oh yeah, it's also a lot of people don't realize this, but it's like content strategy on what you create and build as well. So there's like a content like what we're doing here at interviews with people. That type of content just doesn't last as long. So I could do an interview. I just did one with Genius Yield this morning. That's time sensitive, and that will only last for maybe 2-3 months. And that's it. That's the life of that particular piece of content. Whereas how to stake ADA, that should last forever. So it's a real strategy in what you want to emphasize your efforts on, so you can actually build that long-term content.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's part of the goal here, at least with me, is to talk about individuals and then to go into who the individuals are. So then that way, those individuals, you're not going to change your past coming into crypto. You're not going to change a lot of what you used to do in your hobbies. Like, I'm sure your hobbies will change over time. You probably won't be boxing for 10 years. Well, maybe you will, but
I'll try. But,
yeah. But I mean, it's always fun to see people on their journey and to really get a glimpse of where they're at. But you make a great point there. But talking about Genius Yield, what is Genius Yield? Since now you already did that interview and I saw it, I started watching it actually just earlier today, and I didn't honestly listen to it long enough to get a good understanding of what it is. So if you wouldn't mind explaining it to me, just because I'm ignorant in that topic right now.
Sure. So Genius Yield is a decentralized exchange being built on Cardano, obviously. They're taking a different approach, and they're really utilizing what the Cardano's EUTXO model has to offer. So because it's so different, instead of taking the approach of the traditional AMM, the automated market maker model, where you have a liquidity pool and everyone's putting their liquidity into it, they went for a more of an order book style with the EUTXOs. So if you look at like a muesli swap, for example, that's a really good example. So their approach where they're doing order matching. So someone or a lot of people would submit their orders at various different prices, and the other side would put in their buy orders at very different prices, and those orders would be matched or partially matched together, and that's the way that their DEX would work. So they've taken a very different approach around that, but they've also coupled it with other smart mechanisms in there, such as a yield optimizer, so it can move your liquidity that you put into those EUTXOs to different price points to make it better, so you can actually gain some extra yield off your liquidity that you put on there. And they're also putting in some other smart things, such as smart routing, which is their mechanism to match those particular orders. And it's not necessarily them that is matching it. Third parties can actually go and match it. So, with a lot of the DEXs in the ecosystem at the moment, because of their structure and how they're set up, they have to use batches or agents to actually match these orders and process the orders, whereas they're not doing any of that. So it should be a much more capital efficient DEX with some unique features such as stop losses, as well as a cheaper DEX, because they're not paying for batcher fees and anything else around that. So a little bit more capital efficient, less fees, and a little bit and more optimized because they're using the full EUTXO models. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, and you talk about it being decentralized DEX. You obviously are an ambassador for them. Is there a certain team around them? I saw you did an interview with Lars there, and so what does the team look like?
Yeah, so it's a fairly large team. There's more members that we just don't know about because they're just the engineers. So Lars is the chief technical officer. Marvin, who I also interviewed, is the chief science officer. Then there's Laurent, who's the co-founder. Sori, who's I think that's how it's pronounced his name, is a co-founder as well. But they're the core team that have formed Genius Yield, and then all their other advisors and team members around that. They help support everything that they build. But it's quite an ecosystem that they've built. So it's not just the DEX and the trading platform. Because they've built Genius X, which is the accelerator, they can onboard projects at an earlier stage. But because they have that Genius X component, they've taken in projects at all different stages of the ecosystem. So they can deliver projects from inception all the way to delivery to the DEX and get that fundraising for the project. So they've gone all the way from like seed investing to accelerator and incubator, and all the way to actual DEX listing. So it's a full runway of a particular project, which I don't think any other DEX or anyone else in the Cardano ecosystem has done at the moment. It's a very smart approach. It puts more of the assets and whatever controlled into Genius Yield, but at least they have all of those, not assets, but advisors and help to actually get these projects through and delivered in the Cardano ecosystem.
No, I think that's a great approach, and I think that they, especially like with Lars and any team that he's heading up, he truly knows Plutus. He truly knows Plutus version 2. I mean, the guy helped build it, so he knows how to truly amplify the ETUXO model to where it's supposed to be smooth and operate really well, actually. And
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's cheaper. I like the fact that they're not batching, so hopefully it processes through a little bit quicker, so that would help out as well.
I've heard stories where Lars would, because the accelerators there, a project would come in, they'll be working on something for like 3-4 months, and they're just stuck, and Lars just looks at the code and goes, "Do this, done." And just walks away. That was your only problem. You're sorted now.
I don't think I could ever imagine like being that smart. I really don't, because I remember whenever I was coding and learning how to code, just like basic coding in college, we were going through just like C#, C++, stuff like that, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with solutions to the problems. And so, I mean, like
I that too. Yeah.
I would wake up and I'd run to the computer and I'd type, and then I'd like, oh yes, it compiled, great, back to bed.
It's your subconscious like processing what you've been working on to try and come up with solutions to problems. So it's totally normal for that to happen.
Yeah, I've never until that moment, I've never experienced that, and that was such a weird feeling of waking up in the middle of the night and running to a computer, getting something accomplished, feeling good about the accomplishment in the middle of the night, and then going back to bed, and then waking up the next morning just re-energized and everything else. And so, uh, yeah, that was actually a side of coding that I really liked, was solving the problems. And so for someone like Lars, who's I wonder what type of problems you have to put in front of him for him to go, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder because it comes down to experience as well. Like if you've been doing this for such a long time, you would have seen all different type of problems and engineering problems that you have to try and solve. So I'm assuming he would have seen quite a few, especially when you get to the point where you're writing languages as well. You must have seen it all. You must have seen so much and had so much experience.
Yeah, it's incredible. Um, so let's go on from there. We're going to talk about Blueshiftfi. So that's something that you are intimately uh, familiar with. I actually don't know that much about Blueshiftfi. So you are involved in a lot of different projects that are either cutting edge, such as Genius Yield, or other things that I honestly haven't heard that much about. And so I was really looking forward to this interview because of that. I want to hear like what you got going on, what you're working on, and yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, sure. So the stuff I do at Blue Shift, I'm the digital content creator and social media manager. So I look after all their content side of things. So if you see anything written from their blog posts all the way to their socials posts, it's majority of it's me. So that's what I look after. And in doing that, you have to learn the platform. You have to learn the tech and everything behind it. But I got behind the project when Milcometer team were looking for more people to join their team. I didn't make the cut with Milcometer, but I did make the cut with Blue Shift. So they work hand in hand with each other because they're building on their ecosystem. And I did have a lot of respect for Blue Shift because I interviewed Igor Mikhailov a while back. I think it was like last year sometime. And his experience, so he worked in the Boston Consulting Group back then and worked on the DCF, the Digital Consortium Fund for IOG. So he was a part of that consulting group that was looking at the fundraising methods that the DCF could utilize to try and grow the Cardano ecosystem. So I had a lot of respect for him. He's worked with Charles and whatnot, and he does a lot of that high level, what do you call it, VC kind of fundraising side of things. And that's something that I've never had experience with. And getting to know the team a little bit more, they have a lot of experience in that kind of stuff. So Igor now works at Ernst & Young. The other Igor Strakov, he's worked at University of Moscow and other places as well. Other team members have PhDs, like majority of the team members have PhDs in something or double degrees and masters in whatnot. And then you look at my little reference on their team page. It's just like digital content creator. Yeah. So, I'm learning from these guys. These guys have had like years of experience. And they've got a company called FirmShift that they're partnered with, which some of the team members have been working with FirmShift for a very long time. And they do a lot of EVM-based consultancy. So they write EVM-based smart contracts from Ethereum, build DEXs and whatnot. So they've got a plethora of experience in the space. So they've got the strong technical side, they've got the strong fundraising side, and now they've got this brand new innovations that could actually build on Milcometer as well. So some of these ideas and concepts that they've come up with are just too hard to build on Cardano at the moment. It'll take another like 2-3 years to be able to build that kind of stuff on Cardano.
And that's like with the EVM sidechain and everything else.
It's not so much the sidechain; it's how they've built the DEX. So the DEX are in the traditional sense. You have pairs. So you have ADA and USD, for example. Well, they've gone for a portfolio approach where it's a bundle of tokens and can be an unlimited amount of tokens in that bundle, in that portfolio. You can think of it as an ETF, an exchange traded fund, such as an index for the S&P. So it's like 500 different companies all piled into that one ETF, and you can buy a portion of that ETF and get exposure to the whole ecosystem. So now you can buy a portion of the liquidity of a portfolio pool in Blueshift and get complete exposure to that entire ecosystem there. So recently, yeah. So it works similar to like Balancer. I think it's Balancer in the EVM space, but they've optimized a whole bunch of things to make it a little bit better and more capital efficient. This is hard to visualize sometimes, but so let's say you have, I'll use the actual example of the Cardano index, which is just launched. So there's 4 tokens in there. They got the Blues tokens, NMaker, Copy from Cornucopias, and ViFi from ViFinance. So I can buy into that liquidity pool. I can put in some liquidity in there. I can just put in NMaker, for example, and just NMaker. I don't need to put in another pair with it. Unlike with other AMM dexes, you need to put in 2 of the tokens, or at least sell one, so you have the other trading pair to it, and then you can trade against it. So now that's one big benefit. Me as a user, I can just put in one single-sided bit of liquidity onto the DEX. So I'm not exposed to volatility of another token. So another token might crash, that's okay. I put in my one token in there. The other thing now that I can now perform a swap within that portfolio, and instead of relying on the amount of liquidity in a pair, I can draw upon the liquidity of the entire portfolio. So this is a little bit hard to visualize because I didn't quite get it at first.
I'm trying to get. I think I get it. Like, so you're minimizing your exposure. You're able to go into what you truly want at the same time, and then maximize return.
Yeah, maximize return. But the important thing is,
like, well, or just maximize what you want.
Yeah, yeah, and also because you're the tokens in each portfolio are siloed, you're not you can draw upon the entire liquidity of that particular token in that portfolio. So, for example, on MinSwap, you have ADA and Min tokens. You have ADA and ViFi. You have ADA and NMaker. So all of that ADA is in separate token pairs. And when I do a trade, I can't trade across all of that ADA in those 3 different pairs. But in the portfolio pool, I can. Oh. And because I can, and because I can pull in all of that ADA at once, it's a deeper amount of liquidity. Mm-hmm. And with that deeper amount of liquidity, there's less slippage. So there's less chance of price movement. Yeah,
I like it. So yeah, I mean, it's what was I thinking of? Like, there's something that I was thinking of whenever it might have been like just batching to where you can batch multiple. It was the JPEG bundles. And so that reminds me of just like a DEX version of JPEG bundles in a sense. So like in a JPEG bundle, like you have to bundle them all together and buy them all. However, what it seems like you're explaining is that all of the liquidity goes into one bundle, and then you can pick out what you want. Is that accurate at all, or am I just off?
No, not quite. Dang it. Yeah, I'm trying to find like a really good analogy for it. It's like let's say you have 4 cups of water on the table, and anytime you want to do a trade, you have to do a trade out of one of those cups, and the amount of water in that cup is very limited. So because it's limited, you could have price slippage and potential impermanent loss because there's not much liquid in those cups. But instead of having 4 cups, you can have 4 very large cups of the equivalent token. So let's say each one of those cups had ADA and their equivalent tokens, such as ViFi, NMaker, Copy, and Blues. Now I can take all of the ADA that's in those cups and put it into one large cup and draw upon that ADA in that large cup to reduce the slippage. Oh, is that a better visualization?
That is actually a very good analogy. I like that a lot.
So I'm now taking out the ADA from all those small little cups, putting into the large cup. So it's a bigger cup that I can pull the liquidity out of.
Okay, I can see that. So then how do they make it up on the back end? Like how do they like, let's say you get a bunch of InMaker and then now are they running low on InMaker and have to then repurchase InMaker?
Yeah. So on each one of the portfolios, there's a balancing metric. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a certain percentage that that pool is aiming for that particular token. So in the Cardano index pool, each one of the tokens is 25%. So that's the target ratio for each one of the tokens. So at any point in time, I can put tokens in or pull them out. But if the amount of tokens in that portfolio is higher than the target ratio, then if I put more tokens in, it's bad for the portfolio in general. So there might be a slight price impact of me putting it in. But in terms of taking out, because it's higher than the ratio, I can take it out with no price impact. So that encourages arbitrage on the DEX. So they can see, like arbitrage traders can see, okay, it's an opportunity to pull assets out at that point in time rather than putting assets in.
That's a really good way of doing it. It's kind of like how Indigo has their arbitrage for their synthetic assets. So if you see someone's about to get margin called, then you can go in there and fulfill it, and then you make up that arbitrage as well. So that seems like a super interesting project. I really like it. Thank you for explaining it to me, especially in the way that you did with the analogy and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime I hear Igor explain it, like he explains it so well, and I get it now. But I'm just trying to break it down into visualized analogies to make it even simpler for people as well. So hopefully, I'm doing an okay job there.
No, I mean, all I knew was that Blueshiftfi was the DEX, and I didn't know the ins and outs of it. I knew that they were vaguely working with Milkamada, but I didn't realize that they were on the Milkamada sidechain. And so I didn't know like what the relationship was there. I didn't know anything really about it. So I think you did a great job, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Like they're on Milkamada for Cardano. They're on Milkamada for Algorand. So it just launched like 2 weeks ago. Then we'll be on Carver, I think, next week. And then they're also building the underlying infrastructure for the Blues chain itself. So a competing chain that would encompass all of those implementations into one. So
that's crazy. That's a ton of work.
Oh yeah. But these guys have done it before. So that Blues chain is built on top of the Cosmos software development kit, Cosmos SDK. And I didn't realize, but Binance chain is actually built on Cosmos. So they're trying to build.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you look up what do you call it? Cosmos, look at their ecosystem and see what's built on top of it. Binance is like a big tick there.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
It's the blockchain for blockchains. If you want to build a blockchain, you build it on Cosmos so you can have this major interoperability because it have those different layers of connectivity in there.
I'm gonna have
Cosmos
to look
is
into
amazing. I knew nothing about
more,
Cosmos.
a little bit more. Yeah. And so I'll look into Cosmos a little bit more. And thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for telling me that. Because I've always wanted there to be a blockchain of blockchains. And in my mind, the best one to do that with was Cardano because of the Haskell language and how you can piggyback a bunch of other languages on top of it. And so I was looking at it and thinking, okay, so Cardano seems like the best one because you could have a bunch of different side chains. You could have maybe some bridges. You could have just a really good interoperability. But yeah, I didn't know that about Cosmos as well. It's something I'm going to have to look into just a little bit more. So yeah,
I'm only scratching the surface of it as well. There's so much to go into it. But from what the tech team have told me at Blueshift, we have like fortnightly meetings, but they'll be able to pull in liquidity from anywhere across their ecosystem and do cross-chain swaps. We don't know when those cross-chain swaps will happen, but because it's all interconnected, that technology is there in the background for us to be able to do cross-chain swaps. So I'll be able to swap algo tokens for ADA within the ecosystem. So soon. And then, all the bridges and stuff from it, you can do the swaps on the chain and then bridge it back onto the mainnet on Cardano, for example.
Huh. And then I'm sure they're going to provide like again, what Indigo is doing, like the synthetic side of things. And I'm sure they're going to do that as along with the bridges and the side chains, just like everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know about the synthetics, but I'm not sure of the mechanics and what they need to build for that, all that.
So then that really flows into something that I was just thinking about there. You mentioned that Cosmos houses other blockchains, and that Blueshiftfi is doing a bunch of good stuff, and Genius Yield is doing good stuff. But yet we're not seeing a giant uptick in users. So what do you think is one of our largest holdups to getting mass adoption?
Hard one. One is, I think, the stigma of the stigma and the bad PR and social media that Cardano has in general. So changing that narrative, I think, will take time, and I think it needs to be proven for that narrative to change. And I think in the DeFi space, like it always comes back to DeFi and TVL. As much as you think, oh no, we shouldn't be using TVL as a metric, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to other chains. It's what they use. TVL is their measuring stick of how good an ecosystem is. So we need to, I guess, compare ourselves with the same metrics to get some people over there interested. Of course, you can say, Cardano's transactions are better because we have EU. So one transaction could be many transactions. It's transactions on transactions and everything like that. You can
or we don't have to lock it because we have liquid staking or whatever.
Yeah, all that stuff. You can explain it to death, but people just go, all right, but what's your TVL? Why is it going down? It looks really bad. I'm looking at DeFi Llama. You guys are going down, down, down. You're going down to 17 cents. I'm sorry, but that's their argument, and you can't change that until that TVL, I believe, from my point of view, is changed. And I think with stable coins is the biggest key for that TVL to change, because at the moment anyone in DeFi is trading against unstable, volatile assets, and as soon as we get USD or any other stable coin back in, we have a more of a stable ecosystem. So a lot of people will be parking their assets in like a USDA and JED, for example, just to protect there.
But no, I think that you brought up a fair point in that we have to have a standard measuring stick. One ecosystem can't be saying, oh, well, this way of measuring is better because X, Y, Z, and the other one say, no, this way is better for measuring because it's different this way. And I think that that's really what Charles was alluding to whenever he went to the University of Edinburgh to start doing the different ways of measuring decentralization. And so we have to have common ways of measuring each other. Like we have to have standards. We have to have standards of measuring quality against quality, and not just everyone has to understand everything, because that's not going to be good for the long term. So I think that you brought up a good point there as far as we have to increase TVL, but in order to do that, stable coins come around. And then also DeFi. DeFi is going to start getting much, much bigger in Cardano once we get stable coins, and then also once Marlowe becomes really, really active. I was just saying that today in the Wing Rider space on Twitter, that one of the things that really gets me pumped up for 2023 is the fact that we're going to have both midnight, so private smart contracts, and we're going to end up getting Marlowe in 2023 as well. And we look at the different DeFi systems that are coming online. So we're going to end up with easy peer-to-peer financing in Africa. And so I look at that and I think this is great. And we can do it privately, or businesses can do it. or businesses can send data to each other. And I think that once we actually solve problems for people, then that's whenever the VCs are going to show up. That's whenever the other ecosystems are going to show up and actually say, looks like you guys are doing some cool stuff here, instead of a bunch of people over there speaking geek, geek, dork, dork, and and just hanging
That's a way to
out.
put it. Yeah. It's especially for the VCs. It's like once a couple of VCs hear, oh, you made how much on what project?
Right.
How come I wasn't invited? It's those kind of stories that they'll hear eventually, and we just got to wait that little bit longer,
Hmm.
really, for that to happen. Like stable coins, Midnights, the Marlow for easy smart contract development, but also some of these really cool development tools and open source tools that people are building at the moment to make that developer experience better and easier. So that kind of stuff is coming out now at the moment. It's reached like a maturity after a good year of development, and that stuff is just starting now as well. So I don't. Did you ever try setting up Nix or Plutus development on your computer?
No, I didn't. And
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It destroyed my MacBook. I had to set
what?
up I had to set up a Nix partition. I went for the partitioning method, so I had like an image of Nix on the hard drive, and it just destroyed my Mac. I did it twice, so I destroyed it, restored my Mac,
Oh
destroyed it
my
again.
gosh.
So I gave up after that point. I went to the PC. But it's, I thought it would be easier, but no, it was not. So it's that developer experience of installing some of these things like Nix, Cabo, and whatnot to get your environment up and running is terrible. And it's only now that some of these solutions have made it a lot easier to make that developer experience better. So we're at that point now where developers will be able to build things easier, faster, and not worry about that kind of headache that I went through. And
Yeah.
many other developers went through.
Yeah, and I think that's going to bring us to a great place, especially now that once the tooling is online, and it's in a good spot. Um, and then to make things even more secured, I would eventually like to see something like Marlow, but for developers, not just strictly for smart contracts. And so, if you want something to loop or do a simple if then it should just be drag and drop. Um, and so, I mean, you could do that, yes, through financials. You could do that through NFTs. You could do that through uh, any number of things. And I think that would solve a lot of the simple transactions that people are wanting to set up, especially for simple applications. And just setting something up like that to where a couple weeks time and you're up and running. In my opinion, that'd be ideal as well. But yeah, if we're able to, going back to like Marlow and Midnight and stuff like that, if I could go up to a wealth manager here in the US and say, "You want to know how to make 13% a year?" They're going to go, "You have my attention."
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
And
an easy sell.
yeah, and by the way, it's going to look good on your ESG report because you're going to be lending money to people in Africa. And they're used to 50, 60%, and you're going to be able to come in at 15% and undercut their own bank. And now at 15%, let's say a couple of those default, so you don't make that money back, call it 12 to 13% a year. And they're going to
Yep.
say, "Yeah, where do I sign up? How do I try this out? Here, take a little bit of money, we'll try this out for 6 months and we'll see how the experience goes."
I hope so. That's kind of a future and solution I really hope is being
Yeah.
created and sold. I know it's coming, but I really hope that there's adoption across it, and major institutions around the world can provide microfinancing to a lot of those people that need it in developing countries.
Yeah, man. And yeah, I think that's really something that I look forward to. Um, Last topic, and then I might have like one closing question, but boxing,
Yeah,
something,
right.
yeah, something near and dear to your heart. What what brought you into it, man? What is it about boxing? Is it the fact that you focus on the other opponent? Is it the fact that you're learning something new? Does it clear your mind while you're in the ring? Uh,
All right. Well, I've always done martial arts. So I've done Tang Soo Do, karate, taekwondo. So I'm always a kicker, Muay Thai as well. But I've never competed on a serious level, like full contact. So I've trained for like decades. But just recently, my gym that I go to, it's a mix between a fitness center and a boxing gym. They started doing these actual boxing challenges where you compete against other people within the gym. So it's not super serious, but they take you to the point where it is fairly serious. It's full contact with headgear, and just I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. And going through the training, you learn how much boxing is. There's a lot of strategy behind it. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of like psyching out your opponent, drawing them into a particular attack, making them drop their guard. There's so much. It's an art form. It really is an art form behind it. When you say martial arts, it really is an art. So you practice that. You go through drills. You make all your moves into muscle memory. And then once you're there with the opponent, it's a matter of like drawing them in, making them lose their rhythm, making them fall for your traps and your feints, so that you can get the points and get your attacks in. So for me, it was always a bit of fitness and a bit of fun, but now it's an art form, and I absolutely love it. My boxing coaches always say, Pete, boxing's an art. There's more to it than just smashing a bag. And I never really understood it until you actually get into the ring and fight face to face with an opponent that is there just about to knock you out. So and the plus, like once you're in the ring, I've never felt anything like this. The amount of adrenaline, the lactic acid, and everything around it is definitely makes you feel alive.
Yeah, and once you experience that adrenaline rush, you want it again and again. Yeah, and I've never boxed like that, like just strictly boxing. The closest thing that I can do to relate to that is wrestling. And so I did a fair amount of wrestling growing up, and yeah, I can relate to, okay, so if I shift my weight this way, then you're going to counter that way, and then that's going to free up your arm so I can grab your arm this way.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
And then
it's all that strategy. That's I'll put my head down that little bit lower. Hopefully you go for my head so I can do a slip and then uppercut you as I make an angle. And yeah, it's like all that planning, like 4 or 5 steps ahead, and just trying to get you into that position where you can win.
Yep. And you notice the smallest things, like, oh, their chin is 2 inches too high or too low. Oh, their foot is off just a little bit this way. And so it's super attention to detail. And I think that whenever you're so focused in on that, I was listening to the Mark Zuckerberg interview with Joe Rogan, and where he said that he has to do MMA and jujitsu because it takes so much focus that it really drowns out everything else in his life, and he has to focus here. Otherwise, he's going to get punished for not focusing.
Yeah, you certainly do.
And so, go ahead.
Yeah, when I'm in the ring, there's nothing else. I'm fully focused on the opponent ahead of me. I can't hear people around me. I can't hear the music. I can't hear the crowd. It's just me and that other guy in front of me just swinging. So swing, duck, weave, look for his patterns. It's pure focus.
That's awesome. So, Pete, thank you so much for your time here. Thank you so much for doing this while you're sick or recovering from being sick.
Yep. Have fun editing this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely will. It's going to take me a little bit of time, but I'll get it. It's worth the practice. I've never edited a full video before, so I'll give it a go.
Easy. Once you do it, once you fly through it, it's a piece of cake.
Oh, good. Last question. how can people support you? How can people get out there and help the Cardano Ambassador of the Year?
Ambassador of the Year.
So not to put you on the spot or embarrass you at all.
There's always a stake pool. You can always delegate to that. Little small wallets, that's fine.
The stake pool is ADAOZ, is that right?
Yep, that's it.
ADAOZ. So if anyone wants to help support Pete, you can go ahead and delegate to ADAOZ.
Yep, that's one. We also have our project Cardano Press, which integrates the world of WordPress and Cardano. So anyone that wants to build a website using the Web 2 space and integrate the blockchain, you can support that project. It's completely open source. It's completely free at the moment. So if you want to build something cool, play around with it.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of projects using Cardano Press, and it seems like it's a good project that's going to gain some traction in the future.
So gaining traction at the moment, and hey, I wake up and there's like a brand new website that's built with Cardano Press. I'm like, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. So again, Pete, thank you so much, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. Go get some food and enjoy your weekend. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.